I'll put it on the UX and ATX page so that you can go back and view it again. So welcome everybody. Before I go into the details, I do want to tell you a little bit about UX and ATX events that are coming up. I don't know how many of you are already a member of UX and ATX, which all you have to do is join Slack and come to our meetups to be a member at this point. But we do have some pretty cool stuff. UX and ATX, we call it UX and ATX because it started in Austin, but it's really, it's grown to everywhere. So people all over the country, all over the world are actually coming to our events. And we're really excited to have that kind of network. We try to do monthly somethings. So all summer, we've been doing a really cool series, a summer series, thanks to our partnership with General Assembly. And we have the next installment next week. It will be on August 31st, and it's all about prototyping with sound with Adobe Xd. And that's going to be really cool. Matt Ray is our instructor, and he's been doing a fantastic job. On September 15th, it's not really a UX and ATX event, but I'm going to be speaking there. It's in person at Parlor and Yard, and you can. All these events are on the UX and ATX website, which have the links to register. But this one's all going to be about ethics and design. So that should be pretty cool to meet people in person for the first time. Then we have another summer series event on September 21st, which is extending your workflow with Creative Cloud. And then we have a panel discussion on September 30th. Some folks I know and I have been talking about this whole lack of hiring for junior positions. And our theory is that people are just nervous about the process of onboarding and nurturing a junior designer. So we're going to be having a discussion all about that. I hope you'll join us. All of these events are free. So thank you all for coming tonight to talk about the UX Job Club. Here's what we're going to be covering. I'm going to introduce myself for those of you who haven't met me yet, and I'm going to let Devin introduce himself. We'll get there in a second. I'm going to go through all of the, what is it? What are we trying to do here and why? I am going to show you a bit about kind of logistics and the sessions. We'll talk about how to apply, because this is not going to be open just randomly to anybody. This is going to be an application, and then we'll finish up with Q&A. Sound good? All right, cool. I don't expect it's going to take the full hour, so hopefully you all stop me if I'm droning on forever. Come off mute. So let's talk about the UX Job Club. So what it is I want to get some folks together in a virtual session, and I'm going to help coach them on getting a job. Okay, so that's essentially what it is. Now this is a pilot program, and I'm kind of modeling it off a program that a friend of mine is doing for product managers, where they have kind of a regular weekly session of peer and expert feedback to hold people accountable in their job search. So it's not going to be all day, every day. It's certainly not going to have the intensity of a boot camp, but it will be weekly sessions, and I am going to time box it for this one for just 8 weeks. Now, what we learn in this session, the feedback we get from the people who are in it, that's going to help us make another one, because I anticipate doing more of these. So even if you want to do it and you don't get into this first one, you might luck out. You might be able to be in the next one. Devin and I are, depending on how many applications we get, we might be changing things around a little bit in order to incorporate more people into it. But it really depends on our availability. And Devin just got a job, so he doesn't have all day to work on stuff. All right, why am I starting this? So I'm talk to designers all the time, and I hear about the pain that people are going through finding a job, and it's breaking my heart. I don't want UX design to cause so much stress for people just to get into their first job. I do see the same mistakes happening over and over again, and I do try to coach my students and give them the tools that they need. But to be honest, I'm giving in class, I'm giving a lot of the skills that are needed to do the job when we don't spend as much time on all of the mechanics that go into what you need to do to get the job in the first place. So I just want to help. that is my whole motivation, is to help people get jobs. If whatever I can do to connect people, and I really believe that if we can create a network of people who are looking out for other folks, that we can all help people get into the positions that are right for them. I have been known, we're hiring for a position right now, and there's just so many great designers on the list, and I only have one spot, and I have 40 people who have applied. So there have been folks that I have connected with other jobs that I've seen because I thought their portfolio was so good. I want us to keep doing that so that we can help each other get into those right jobs. I'm a firm believer that a rising tide raises all boats. We don't have to be cutthroat about it. We can certainly all help each other. So that's what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. Now, the question you're asking is the UX job club for me? Am I a good fit? Well, if you're looking for a job, so whether you're in a position now or not, as long as you're looking for a job, this is really focused on UX designers specifically. So research, like the whole umbrella of UX research, design, but like anything within that umbrella. It's less focused on graphic design. And you really can be anywhere in your career, but I'm really tooling this more on those folks that are looking for their first, second, or third job, because it's not as hard for a senior designer to find a position right now. It's a lot harder for a junior to get themselves that edge so that they can step into a role. So that's really who it's designed for. The one thing I'm asking is I'm looking for people who are committed. This is not the kind of thing that you maybe show up when you feel like it. Oh, I like the topic tonight, but I'm not going to go next week because I am not interested. It's about commitment. And so your cohort needs your feedback, and they need you so that you can hold them accountable and they can hold you accountable. So my expectation is that the people who get accepted into it are going to be there the whole time. Rarely would miss one. Maybe like there's a dentist appointment or emergency that comes up. I get that. But it needs to be a committed response, even if you get a job, because that's the best thing, right? You got a job, your experience can help the other people in the group. And then also have this kind of feeling of reciprocity. How can I help someone else in the group? So really turn it out to like not just be about yourself, but about how can I help everybody? Because giving really does help you gain. There's this saying that the folks from Business Networking International, BNI, talk about givers gain. It's totally true. And I'm a huge believer in it, and we'll be doing activities to help each other as you're working or looking for this job. Any questions so far? Cool. There will be time for questions at the end if anything comes up. So what we're going to have as part of this is that there will be weekly sessions, and this will be kind of a moderated with me and with Devin. I totally forgot to introduce ourselves. I'll come back to that in a second. We will have a Slack channel so you can communicate all the time with your folks. It'll probably be on the UX and ATX channel to start, and we'll determine whether there's too much there and whether we need to create a separate one. And then we'll also have a separate session weekly that will be kind of office hours. So like on a weekend, you don't have to come, but if you want to, you can just come in, ask questions, get feedback. Hey, can you take a look at my case study? Hey, this is my portfolio, whatever's coming up. And then we'll be there to answer any questions that you have. And you said that you read that right. It is free. I'm not going to charge for this, partly because I want to see if it works. And then also because I want to help you guys. Now you're asking, who the hell is this lady? Why does she want to help me? Well, my name is Cindy Brummer, and I am the founder, CEO, creative director of a UX design and development agency called Standard Beagle, which is based in Austin, Texas. I have been teaching the UX UI bootcamp at the University of Texas. I just finished my 3rd cohort, set to start my 4th. And I love UX so much. So I founded this group, UX and ATX. And I'm everywhere. So I could go on and on, but I'm happy to connect with you on LinkedIn. Just tell me where we met and I will accept. Let me have Devin introduce himself.
Hey guys, I'm so glad that you joined us today. My name's Devin. I am a UX designer. I just landed my first week ago, so I literally can empathize with all you all so much and how grueling it is. I take a little credit that Cindy uh, made Job Club in efforts because I was complaining so much to get a job. So I'll just take a little bit of credit, but I'm just here to help. Hopefully, share my experiences with you guys, and so you don't have to go through the wrong path like I did multiple times. So yeah, happy to be here.
Devin is awesome. Devin, hopefully will be able to TA with me again. And Sandy, who's also my co-host tonight. All right. So let me go a little bit about the kinds of stuff that I'm going to be covering in each of the sessions. I put this together and I'm keeping it kind of loose, but I want to, this is kind of the structure that I'm thinking of. I really want to make sure that we're covering networking and LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is such a key part of finding a job. And there's so many tools for maximizing it and making sure you're getting the most out of it. So we're going to spend the first week talking about that. We're going to go over resumes. I want to make sure that we're reviewing resumes, that we're optimizing them. Most of the resumes I look at are pretty good. And you probably already got some feedback if you have like a career services that you're working with. But it never hurts to have additional eyes on them. We'll also go over portfolios. There's some best practices. I know lots of people have tons of questions about what to put in, what to leave out, and we'll kind of help navigate those waters. We'll definitely talk about prepping for an interview, actually going out and, maybe identifying and getting through that screener call and especially that technical interview. Interview questions can throw people for a loop. So we'll do our best to help you prepare and practice so that you can be articulate when you're actually in the interview. You might be asked to present a case study in the interview. This is something that I have people do, and I've definitely seen it done very well. And there's some things that I can coach people on to help them avoid those pitfalls that can also make you feel like, ooh, that didn't go well. So have you practiced presenting your case studies, whichever one you think is your strongest? We're also going to go over whiteboard challenges. Some of you may already be familiar with them. We're going to practice them and go over them lots and lots and lots of times just to get you thinking about what you should be putting on that whiteboard and going through the process. The more you go through it, the easier it will get. And then finally, we're going to talk about take-home design challenges. These are probably the thing that is the most questioning. And the thing actually I hate the most that people do to other people, you poor designers are getting a take-home challenge, and then you have to put together these UIs without the context and you have no idea why you're being excluded. So we'll do our best to help you navigate those as well. So that's a little bit of the look at what we're doing, and any other I'm open to other topics as we get into it. So we'll shift and pivot as we need to, and definitely answer questions as they come up. And yes, there is going to be homework. There is going to be some expectations of working on an assignment, but it's not going to be as much as you had to do if you were in a boot camp or any kind of thing like that. Not even close. We're talking about things like polish your LinkedIn profile, bring your resume next week, iterate on your resume based on the feedback. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing as part of the homework. So just want to make sure that people are kind of doing stuff in the meantime, and then also bringing it back to show, hey, look, I'm doing it. I'm making progress, because that's the only way it's going to be successful, is if you're following through in your commitments. An agenda might look like this, where we come in, I might have a few announcements. We'll do the reciprocity circle of like, who needs something? And I'll explain how that works when we start. I'll intro the topic, kind of do a broad brush over it. And then there might be some things that we go a little bit deeper into. So we kind of have that T view of certain aspects of what we're going to be talking about. We'll have some time for Q&A. We'll do an activity. So make sure that you're retaining what it is that you just heard. Then we'll kind of talk about the activity, answer any more questions, and then we'll have time for a work session. So you'll be in groups with your peers. I'm trying to make it in small like breakout rooms so that you're getting to know people, and then you're also like, hey, what about this? Hey, what about this? That kind of collaboration is super helpful. And then we'll wrap up and explain what needs to be done for the next week. So the application process, pretty easy actually. I put in there we go. So I have an application form that will go up on the UX and ATX website on Friday, August 27th. So that's this Friday. The only reason it's not going to go up tonight is because I'm having issues with the forms on the website and they're not going through. And rather than have you, like I have a developer working on it. So rather than have you fight that, I'm going to have you wait until we can resolve that issue and I'll put it up on Friday. We are right now only planning to take 12 people. But that being said, don't let that discourage you from applying. Like I said, Devin and I might see like, oh, wow, we can totally handle 24 if we structure it the right way, or more. And we'll definitely put anybody else who applies on a waiting list, and we'll look at like, can we start something else? Like maybe soon after we start or right at the tail end of the 8 weeks. I am going to stop applications on September 10th, and we are going to review them on a first come, first serve basis. And all we're looking for is your name, your email, can you commit, and why? That's really all we're looking for. There's no special skills that need to come in there. I really would love to have people with a growth mindset. But really this is for you. I will have a code of conduct, and that's mostly just to have like respect and like I understand that I'm here to help everybody else. And we'll get things started. I know it's kind of far in the future, but since I have a speaking engagement on September 15th, we're not going to kick off until September 22nd. So if you get a job in the meantime, yay! But if you're still looking, I still think that that's within a reasonable amount of time to get everybody going, and that gives us time to make sure that we have our ducks in a row so that you have the best experience possible. And so that's pretty much all I have, and I would love to take your questions.
I have a question.
Sure.
So my background is in graphic design, and I don't necessarily know if I'm looking to be a UX designer. This is probably not the best place for me.
Yeah, if you don't know if you're looking for a UX design job, then probably not yet. But once you do know you want to be a UX designer, then yes, it is the place for you, because we can help you get a UX design job, not
Okay.
necessarily a graphic design job. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. What other questions do y'all have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So I am working. I took your boot camp, as you know, and I loved it, but I ended up finding a job in interior design again, which is the field I wanted to get out of. So even though I am working, I still am actively job searching for UX positions. Would I still qualify even though I am employed?
Yes. No. Yeah. You don't have to not have a job.
Okay.
If you're, as long as you're looking and seeking, you're total and looking for specifically a UX job, then yes.
Okay, great.
It's okay. Yeah, career change is totally fine. And even if you were in a UX job now, like I said, anybody, any career stage, but we're really tooling it more for people looking for their first, second, or third UX job.
I do have a question.
Sure.
Hi, yes. I know you mentioned that, you kind of create this due to seeing a lot of the same mistakes that people are making when applying for jobs. May I ask, what would you say the top mistake is that would warrant you to create something like this?
I don't know that I have them ranked. I'm hearing a lot of frustration. I'm hearing a lot of folks saying, I don't know what I did wrong. And sometimes it's not anything that you did wrong. Maybe
Right.
it's more like, what questions are you asking? Like it's hard to say. So sometimes people just don't have the right look on their case, like they haven't put the right stuff in their case study that someone's looking for, or they need more keywords in their resume, or maybe the way that they presented their case study wasn't in a cohesive manner, or when they were asked their process, they ended up going down a random rabbit hole instead of really talking about their process. So there's actually quite a few things that could go wrong, and it's a lot of different levers that we would be tweaking on it, you know.
I have a question. Oh, sorry.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead, Lisa.
Oh, sorry. This will be quick. I just have a quick question. I too, I think very similar to Rachel. I took a seasonal job, but I'm still I'm trying to get my foot in the door in UX. I don't get home. I guess my question is more of time. I don't get home until after 4 o'clock.
Oh
'cause
yeah,
I
this will
start
be
in the morning.
evening. This will be
Okay.
evening. Yeah. I'm gonna
All
do
right,
it like, I'm thinking around 6:30 to 8-ish, you know,
That's
just
perfect.
to make sure that it's good timing for people who are working. I
Okay.
anticipate, yeah, I know a lot of people have to like do something during the day, so that's what it's for.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah. Elliot.
Yeah, my question was, how localized to Austin did you sort of figure this might be? In the sense that like I'm probably like a year in, like I finished a boot camp and I've worked on some stuff outside of that. But it would be really cool even to just meet with people outside in person at some point. And like, is there any idea to maybe incorporate that to make it not just screens?
Well, we can definitely do add-on stuff. But I know that there's quite a few folks that would not be able to do anything if we did it in person, but we can do add-on stuff. That would be pretty cool, you know, do some additional networking. We got to be safe though. I mean, my office is shut down because of the Delta variant. So hopefully things will open up in late September, October. But that's a great idea. I love that.
I have a question.
Hi, Cindy. Oh, go ahead,
We'll
Jimmy.
start with Jimmy and then we'll get the next one.
Sorry about that. So I know that a lot of the work is remote typically nowadays.
Mhm.
And I was wondering how much it mattered or if there was a benefit or not being in Austin and the jobs or companies that are actually located in Austin. If there's a benefit to living in Austin for those jobs, or if you're kind of at the whim of basically having to compete with everyone across the country because all the jobs are remote.
That's a great question. I have noticed that a lot of companies are open. Well, it depends. It depends highly on the company. There's a lot of companies right now that even if they were previously like really like in person and wanted people to relocate, that are open to remote, and it might say remote temporarily. I would say that Austin's a really tough job market right now, mostly because we have so many senior jobs that are open and big tech companies that are coming in. And it's also really hard on an entry-level salary to live here, although the salaries are going up. But Austin's a really expensive place to live. Where are you in Austin, or where are you located?
Yeah, I live in Austin. I've
Yeah.
lived here for like about 10 years or so.
Yeah, I think it depends on the company, because I know that, you know, we were open to, for the first time ever, hiring people outside of Austin when we opened up our position. But we tend to like, oh, okay, you're in Austin. That's a little bit easier if you wanted to come into the office. So, and I know some people are shifting and moving to be closer to their remote job hub where they are now. Like one of the co-founders of UX, or one of the organizers of UX and ATX, is moving cross country to San Jose from Austin to be close.
To be honest, I actually kind of would like to work at an actual office at least some of the time. I mean, I definitely would like to eventually be able to work remotely and a nice kind of setup or something, mobile setup or something. But at least initially, I mean, I just finished my UX certificate in Career Foundry, and I'm still kind of finishing that program. But at least initially for my first job, I was kind of hoping to work in an office-like environment, just simply to have the exposure and osmosis of working with other people and kind of, learning things from other people and from a team. Yeah, I don't know how difficult that is, or how likely that is with like contract work, which is what I also was told was probably the best place to kind of get started at.
Well, I think, like I said, it depends highly on the company and their comfort level and what they're doing. So I wish I could answer that for you. I know what we do at my company, and I know what I've seen other people do, but I don't know if that's the case it is across the board. I'm kind of working off of anecdotal kind of evidence on that. So there was another question.
I have
Hi.
a question. Oh, sorry.
Just hold tight, Dina. Well, is
Yeah.
it Serbi?
Surbi. Yeah, hi.
Okay.
I'm from Los Angeles.
Uh-huh.
So I recently completed my UX program course from Google, which was on Coursera.
Mhm.
I started applying for jobs, but what mostly I'm seeing is even for entry-level jobs, they are saying you should have 1 to 2 years of experience. So what should we do in such scenario? Because I do have experience, like previous experience, which can be used here because I was in industry, like tech industry, doing development and business analyst role, but not code designing role. So should we still apply for those kind of jobs, or what? How can we get real life, like real world projects if we don't get a job?
That is such a good question. And I could probably do an entire evening on that. Somebody write that down. That's a good topic for UX and ATX. I don't know that I'll be able to address that here. But that being said, what I typically tell my students is one, it's not it depends on how you're applying, right? I don't know if you're putting in applications through like a computer, or if you're doing the networking and someone's introducing you in. It tends to be a little bit easier if you can get like an advocate on the inside of a company that can say, hey, maybe they don't have a year experience, but this person has so much potential that that's where the networking part comes in. I have done my best to find internships for students, apprenticeships, introducing people to folks that I know, getting them projects with nonprofits, because if they're not going to get paid for the work, I think it should be for a good cause, or at least get some sort of benefit back. Those kinds of things are really helpful.
Okay. So even I was checking, like, can you suggest some platform for nonprofit organizations where we can look for work? Like if we don't get paid, but we get some real world projects on my portfolio, I think that can be helpful.
Yeah, it can definitely help if you have connections to like nonprofits, and just reach out and be like, I want to help. How can I help?
Okay.
That's a good route to go, because while it's not like in a company working with a team per se, it's definitely real world experience. And the sad thing about it is that a lot of employers do not view educational experience as valid. And I think that's a shame personally. But I think there's things that we can do to help bolster, and especially if you have related skills as a BA or anything like that, like that stuff we can tweak, right, in the resume. And it's not lying, but it's showing hey, I may not have had that title of UX designer, but I did a lot of the same things. And so even people that are making are new to UX, but have been working in like the tech field or in a related field for a long time, there's things that we can find in their past skills that we can showcase as like, yeah, you were doing UX. You might have not have known you were doing UX, but you were doing a lot of it. And those past skills are so valuable for employers. That's the kind of stuff I love seeing when I see, even if it's not in tech, somebody who founded a nonprofit or did film or is working, as an analyst, those are all really like real world things that can be applied to UX.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Dina. I have been interviewing recently, this past month, heavily. I've been contacted by recruiters. Should I rely on those recruiters only, or is it better to just apply directly to those companies?
That's a good question. I have known people that get a job through a recruiter, and it's been successful for them because they have the kind of the tie oftentimes to the hiring manager, where if you're
Right.
just kind of blindly applying, you're going through HR and their system, and an HR person, their whole job is to screen out, not find the best fit. What I typically turn people more toward, you can do the recruiter. I wouldn't rely entirely on it, but also do a networking approach through LinkedIn of building up like a network of people that you can have coffee with or have a Zoom meeting with, and just ask them what it's like to work on their team and stay in touch with them. The relationships that I build with people can often lead to, I know somebody that you should talk to. Let me connect you with that job.
Yeah.
So I think the networking is the strongest, and most of the people that were in my program at MICA, they were saying that their jobs all came from that way.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Cindy, this is Lizzie.
Hi.
Hi. So I have a question about when you're recruiting people into the club. So starting from September, do you expect that the member will have like some specific levels or like the progress they've done with their portfolio, like they at least are finishing up, or like any expectation that you think it's gonna be more qualified?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, so if you've started it but haven't finished it, that's not a red flag for me. If you're like, whatever, teach me, I've done nothing, that shows me, come on, work a little harder on it. But if you have like bones, that's fine. You don't have to have finished your portfolio. We can give you guidance if you're stuck. I know I'm mentoring someone that really was really stuck and hadn't moved forward, and I was able to kind of get her on the right path. So that's not a big deal for me, is if you're not done with stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I have a case study that I'm working with one product. I know the product, like, and I mean, I've done like prototypes, but I feel like there's a lot of details I have to add, like making more like as a thorough I would say, yeah, like just like you said, like it has to have like the sketch, and then you have to walk people through how did you actually finish everything, right? Like, so I feel like I only have a final product instead of like having a more detail oriented structure. And also, I think I actually don't really have another project that I would consider as a really real UX project. So I feel like I actually only have one thing that I think it's something that really relevant to do.
Well, we have a whole week on portfolios, right? So that will be all about helping you add those details, figuring out which details to add. Maybe you have a different project that we can kind of, I hate to use the word spin, but spin it so that it could be on your portfolio too. Because really it's helpful if you can have it at least 2, if not 3 projects in your portfolio to point back to. And if you don't have that, that's okay. Maybe we can get you working on a project like a passion project to help you fill out the final ones,
That sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, hit me. Questions.
I have a question. I'm Erin.
Hey, Erin.
Hi. So I saw that there were a lot of topics surrounding getting a job in UX. But will there be anything instructional about after you land that job and negotiating with companies and just talking salary and compensation and stock and all of that.
That's a great idea. We should add that. Write that down, Devin. That's a good idea. Talking salary. Fantastic. We can add that in for sure.
Okay, perfect. That answers my question then. Thank you.
See, I love this feedback. I'm not the, I need to know what you all think is important.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
First off, thanks for doing the free thing. That's pretty amazing. I'm kind of like reverse sticker shock. Anyways, but I was curious about like, so there's 12 slots. Like I've been like reading a bunch of books and like trying to just like figure out the holes of like, what am I missing and all that stuff. And I'm like, is there anything like, if say we don't get in, would there be like things that we could do to prep for maybe the next time or something like that? Or I don't know.
That's a really good idea too. Like, what can you do before you go into the next one? We might be able to put together a blog series or something like that. Thank you for taking notes, Devin, because I'm obviously not. But I think that's a great idea. I love that. And there was a question from Kara. It is not just open to ATX folks. It is open to anyone who, the main things are job seekers that are looking for a UX job specifically, and any level in the career, although I don't think senior and mid-level have as much trouble. So really for your, probably more geared toward people looking for their first, second, or third job. Did I answer all your questions, James? No, I did not.
Well, I was just gonna question about that. So I've had 2 like contract positions for like a few months each.
That doesn't, were they full-time?
No, they're both part-time.
No, yeah, don't count them. So.
Okay, so that's why I'm wondering, like, kind of clarification on what you're.
When that's what I'm, like if you feel like, okay, I'm trying to land that full-time, I'm trying to land that place with my forever home for the next 2 years.
Like learn something or have somebody be like, have time to give feedback, and they're not like, we're a startup.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. What else?
I have another one.
Hi, Cynthia.
Okay, who wants to go first? I didn't see who talked. Okay, Sonia. Is Sonia?
I'm sorry. Yes, it's Sonia, and I had my hand raised. So
cool.
yeah, so it's a great little accessibility feature that a lot of times we don't even know is here. It just kind of helps for those of us in the room who are a little more shy, or maybe we're waiting our turn or whatever. But my question is, it has to do with the reciprocity circle. First of all, love the idea. Thank you. And is that something that we can also add into the application, the things that we're willing to reciprocate? So for those of us who are like UX researchers, maybe we need more graphic design or something to do with some of our portfolio, the way it looks and feels, but we could help out with some of the research questioning and thinking about it from a reciprocity, paying it back and peer mentoring kind of perspective.
That's cool. Yeah, you can certainly put that in there. That's awesome. I love it. I got the idea of the reciprocity circle. I don't know how many of y'all have read the book Give and Take by, what's his name? He's a Wharton psychologist. I read a lot of psychology books. It's really good. And it was recommended to me. Well, first of all, my husband read it and I never read it because even though he told me to. But then a friend of mine told me to read it. So that of course I read it. It was so good. So good. I highly recommend it for everybody. Let's see. Elliot, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, sorry to ask a second question. I assumed it was fine. So I had like a whole career before I decided to do the UX thing, and I'm finding in talking to a lot of other people that that's pretty common. And I'm still having a hard time contextualizing my previous experience to how it would apply to UX, because like I'm not 24 and coming right out of school, not like any offense, but like I'm 37 and a 15-year career, and now I'm trying to pivot. And I think it's a different conversation, even if it's like positive or negative, like you need to give context to why you're switching to UX. So like, I think anything like that would be helpful with that. I don't know where that falls into that itinerary, but that's something that I've been definitely struggling with quite a bit.
Yeah, so we'll probably talk a lot about that during resumes and portfolios. like how to present yourself, and even in your LinkedIn profile, because I too had a previous career. And so it took me years. Yeah. It took me years to figure out how to like showcase that. Like, and it, when I first started, I was like, I am an experienced designer. And people were like, what is that? Because it was that long ago that I made the switch. Because yes, I am that old. So it's taken me forever to figure out how to take those things. But I remember, I think it was last year, we had a whole conversation with a group of, attendees to a meetup, and figuring out like, hey, what was your past career? And they would say, I was a chef. And I'm like, let me tell you all the skills that apply to UX from being a chef. And so that's something we can work on. And we can talk about those kinds of things and any kind of extra questions that might be outside the topic. I don't want it to be just the topic that night. There'll be work sessions, there'll be questions in Slack, there'll be those virtual office hours, those kinds of things to help cover that. All right, I've got 15 minutes, so ask me anything. Yes.
So I recently graduated. It is rough out there. I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida, and I'm being told by recruiters to change all of my profiles to say Austin since I'm open to moving, but you're saying it's kind of tough there for juniors. Do you know of any cities that would be good to claim that I live in? Because they were saying they do searches according to zip code and that there's just not as much volume here.
Oh, wow. I don't know how to answer that, but I will try to find out for you.
Okay.
Because that's crazy.
Yes.
I mean, like that's cuckoo banana pants crazy, I will try to find out for you. Okay. What else can I help with, you guys?
I think the recruiter thing is kind of a big, like, how to do that well. And like you're saying, it feels like, it seems to me that it's kind of a dance, like, in how much you kind of lean on them and how much you kind of stay in your own space and being like, okay, I'm good, thank you, and how much you're like checking with them and whatnot. So yeah, I don't know if there's any part in the course or if there's someone that's a ninja at that, but yeah.
Well, maybe I have some connections that know recruiters. So maybe what we can do, and maybe Devin make a note for me, is to see if we can have a recruiter come in and talk about what they're looking for. At least to kind of give that perspective,
I do have a question also, please.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm getting contacted by so many recruiters that I am not even sure if like after talking to them, they just disappear. I mean, like, are they real? Are they, what's happening?
Great question.
Chime in on that one.
Yeah, go for it, Devin.
Yeah, I've been there. And it's really a weeding out process. You know when you have there'll just be a different type of connection. They'll follow up more. There'll just be a better line of communications, and then as opposed to the ones that are kind of in your email, you respond to them and then they just ghost you after that. The good ones usually call and then they'll email me and they'll send me a message. That was kind of when I started seeing that pattern. That's when you have like a warm lead.
Can you repeat? I'm sorry. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, you're breaking up just a little bit.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I like. Can you guys hear me now? Before I go. Okay. I feel like if you have if a recruiter reaches out to you and they do the combination of they email you, they call you, and then they send you a LinkedIn, all three from the same recruiter, it's probably a good one.
Okay, so what I heard him say is that you need, if a good recruiter is going to try to connect with you 3 ways, it's going to be email, phone, and LinkedIn connection. That's probably one that you can think is reliable. It's the ones that email you once and then they kind of disappear. Don't bank on those.
I may interject on LinkedIn, excuse me. a lot of people looked at my profile. I've got lots of emails, but then I look at theirs and I can tell they're a new recruiter. So they're just putting feelers out everywhere. They're not actually seeing my experience. And when I actually emailed them, it's like, hey, I'm still in school. But I think that's rampant. So you can't let that discourage you. That's just them just kind of doing their job, I think, and hoping that you have the experience or that you're available. And so I just look at it as almost like spam. And I just keep in contact with them and say when I'm there, hopefully they have something available.
That's a great point. Great point.
I want to share too. I've had calls, and like what Devin said, they call you, and then I've had calls and they say, please try to reach us out, and then a text message and then an email, and then that shows that, okay, something that I can at least try to pursue. So, but again, there are some spams that come in, and you'll have to filter that out pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great point.
I have another question.
Sure.
So I know in tech, people switch jobs pretty quickly. It's not like your typical stay at a company for 20 to 30 years anymore. But is there a rule of thumb for how long you should stay at a company before going to another one?
No. Now, I mean, it depends on if you're an FTE versus a contractor. Contract work tends to be like in the 6 months, 12 months, sometimes a little bit longer. If you're full-time, on average, it's like maybe 2 years. I personally like it when people stay longer, at my company, so I don't have to keep replacing them. But round about 2 years is pretty good. If they stay a year, that's not a red flag. It just means that they were kind of upward in their mobility. But if they're not there for very long, and this was a full-time role, like maybe 3 months, then that's a red flag for a hiring manager. So.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. What other questions do you have?
Can I ask another one?
Of course.
Anyone else? I'm curious about if there's any, like, how to spot if something's too senior or like too senior for you in your skill set or where you're at. Because I've gotten a position where they're like, you're great. And then they kind of expected more of a senior designer. And so I don't know if that's anyone else has that issue or whatever, but yeah.
Did anyone else have that issue? So I took, there's a couple of things. I chalk it up to one, companies have no idea sometimes what they're looking for. Companies are not as together as you think they are. They're like, we should get some of that, a little bit of that UX. Let's get us some UX. Let's bring on some designers. And then they have no idea because a lot of them, this is new for them and they've heard it at other places, especially smaller companies, where they're adding in UX. So they don't have, they're looking at what other people have for job descriptions to write their role. They don't really know. So that's partly it. They're probably playing it, kind of cautious. Maybe they wanted more skill, but they didn't want to pay for it. That's another thing, right? Then that's not on you. So part of sussing that out is really critically analyzing the job listing, which can give you a little bit of insight if you read between the lines. And then the other thing is it's your job to ask a ton of questions. And that's your job. And hopefully you can find all this out in your screener call, or if you make it to the next step and ask all those questions to see what they're looking for and to ask tough questions. It should not just be them asking you questions. You need to ask them questions too.
I guess that's what I'm saying, if there's
specific questions
to ask to kind of uncover that. Cause I think I try and read in between the lines, but then
I don't have it in front of me. I don't
Sure.
have the answer for you, James.
No, I was thinking for the program.
Yeah, we're going to talk about interview.
If there's any of that in there, that would be cool.
Yeah, when we talk about the interview questions, we'll
Oh,
also
okay.
talk about good questions to ask back. That's one of my things that I love is when I'm interview and I say, okay, I've left 15 minutes for you to ask me questions. And then they are just peppering me with questions. I love it. Sometimes they're really hard and it makes me a little uncomfortable, but that actually makes me like them even more because they asked me some really tough questions that I had to think about. So those are all really good things. Of course, I can't say that I'm the norm. I mean, I'm offering a job club for free. I can't possibly be the norm, right? So I'm weird, but we can definitely talk about that kind of stuff.
If I may chime in with something, if that's all right.
Of course.
About the specific subject of feeling unqualified for or feeling unqualified of like, oh, this job position, it says it's not for me. I don't think I'm a good fit for this. Similar to kind of what Cindy mentioned about sometimes they don't really know what they're looking for. Sometimes they bluff a little bit, and sometimes they exaggerate requirements, especially when it comes to like how many years of experience they're looking for, as a way to weed out people who aren't confident, especially in the games industry, which is where I'm from. That's incredibly common, where you're basically expected to apply for jobs that you may not necessarily qualify for, because it's sort of like if you know, and if you don't, then you're either intimidated. If you're intimidated by not, having all the, matching every checkbox, then you might not be a right fit regardless of anything else, which I think is incredibly stupid, but that is how it is over there. So sometimes it's worth it to just say, if I have the skills, but like I don't have some other rather arbitrary requirement, like working X number of years, especially that one, go for it anyway. They probably don't actually care that much if you have the right skills. Go for it anyway.
It's true.
Thanks.
James, you changed your name on me because you didn't want me to call you Jimmy. Is that what it was?
Well, I just changed it because that's what my LinkedIn says. So I figure might as well make it all match. So I was going to ask, somebody else said something in the chat, I think, that how much does it matter in terms of specialization with UX, in terms of whether you are doing UX research or doing, prototyping or what aspect of UX either you're applying for or that you think you're best in? How much does it matter in terms of, say, for instance, tailoring your resume or something like that?
Oh, good question. Well, one, it depends highly on the type of company or the company itself and what they're looking for. I have been looking for a UX generalist, almost the unicorn. So I've seen a lot of amazing designers that have strength in certain parts, and yet I needed to check the box on all of them. And but I'm an agency, and that's pretty common for agencies, startups, small companies like that. When you get into larger companies, enterprise organizations, specialization reigns. And so I hate to say it, but you almost need to have a tailored resume for every single job that you go after. And make sure that if you're going after a UX research position, that your resume reflects how much of a researcher you are. And then change it in order to go after a position that might be at, say, Frog, where they're looking for generalists, especially if you have those skills.
Yeah, it seems sometimes kind of tricky too, because like you were saying, with some of these companies that are hiring people, they want you to be able to wear all the hats. And honestly, they're probably, I'm almost certain some of these descriptions for some of these roles are like copied and paste from someone else, from some other job listing. And so, it seems like it's more useful to just have something that's more general, but I don't know how much companies are really going to be looking for specialization unless there may be a much larger company, I would imagine.
Yeah, most of the time it's with a larger company, although there are some specialist groups, consultants and things like that. So it highly depends. But you're right. Companies lie all the time. So, okay. So I want to make sure that I respect you guys' time. We have 2 minutes left, so I want to wrap up. So just to recap, I'm going to uxandatx.com. There will be a link in the upper nav that is UX Job Club. You'll be able to go onto the page, get a recap. I'll put this video that I'm recording on there. So if you want to rewatch it, if something wasn't clear, you can see it. There will be an application form. Hopefully it will be working by that time, and you can apply. This is pretty much a first come, first serve. So I'm not really going to be evaluating applications so closely. I'm just really looking for commitment. I'm going to trust that you all are committed if you're submitting an application. That's really what it comes down to. I hope that I get lots of applications, because I'd rather have that and try to figure out how to incorporate more people in to what I initially thought wouldn't be that big, because I want to make this successful for everybody. I'd love to see everybody get a job, although I'm not promising you're going to get a job. Please don't hold me accountable for that, okay? But I'm going to do my best. And then applications will close on September 10th, and that's it. All right. I know I didn't put my LinkedIn link, but if you go to my name, Cindy Brummer on LinkedIn, you can find me. And I hope to see all of your applications come through the website. And if you haven't joined the Slack channel, I can give you the invite in the chat to Slack. Hold on while I invite. And you guys have a lovely evening.
You too. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, here is the Slack link. Join us on Slack. And I'm going to pause the recording.